This is a meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the Council of the Municipality of the County of Annapolis. We'll begin with the roll call. District 1.
Bruce Prout.
District 2.
Take your candy to
Brian Buzzy Connell.
District 3 is myself, Alan Parrish. District 4.
Mike Bardo.
District 5.
Lynn Longmire.
District 6.
Alec Morrison.
District 7.
David Hudson.
District 8.
Michael Gunn.
District 9.
Wendy Sheridan.
And District 10.
Brad Redden.
And District 11.
Diane LeBlanc.
Thank you very much. Full attendance. Are there any disclosures of interest today, which is the next item on the agenda? I don't see any on the screen. So I'll move along to the next item, the approval of the agenda. I've got, I see a couple of hands up. I've got a couple of things. I'll just start off. I noticed that there's no CAO's report, and I'd like to put that just under my report. If in fact there is no CAO's report, I'd still like it to be on the agenda so that councillors can ask questions if they have any. Also, I'd like to make a late addition. I'd like to just have a discussion of the comfort centers arising out of the power outage that we had a few days ago. And that would go in under 6.8 as the last item under new business. So it'll be, I guess, 6.9, we'll call it, comfort centers, and that won't be for a motion or anything. That'll just be for a discussion. So I saw some other hands up for matters on the agenda. I believe, Councillor LeBlanc, did you have?
I'm good.
And Deputy Warden, was your hand up?
I was just going to move to approve.
Anybody else with any additions to the agenda? I don't see any. So I'll accept a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Moved by the Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Madam Clerk? Madam Clerk?
Could I ask that the motion be as written in the agenda package to include the presentation at 11 o'clock by Annapolis Waterkeepers?
Do you agree with that, Deputy Warden?
Absolutely.
And the seconder, Councillor LeBlanc? Yes, she does. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
So again, I'll call for any further discussion on the motion as amended. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. The presentation of the water keepers will be at 11 o'clock. So we'll go to the adoption of the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on December the 14th, 2021. Would you, Deputy Warden, would you move?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Move to approve. Or adopt.
And is there a seconder? I see a Councillor Prout. Is there a seconder for the motion? We may have to amend it, but is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Connell seconds. Councillor Prout, did you have something to?
I just to mention on page 13 of 27 in the minutes, under the community grants program, the total there would.
I'm not with you, Councillor Prout. I'm not with you. I've got 13
of 27.
27.
Of 79. Sorry.
Okay, 13 of 79. Yeah, and what is it again?
Community grant programs. About a third of the way down the page. The total there, I believe, is incorrect. It should be in the vicinity of $3,971, not $18,971.
Yes, I can see from my quick addition skills that it's certainly not 18,000. Do you have the number there? I'm assuming I'm assuming that the three numbers are correct rather than the total, but maybe the three numbers, there's something wrong.
I believe, if memory serves me correct, that three numbers are correct, and it might have even come up in the meeting that
Yeah.
the total was not 18,000 and change, it was 3,000 change. Well, $3,971 and
I think the amount is, should be, just be, the 8 is wrong. Instead of 18,000, that's where the mistake lies.
What's that, Counselor Hudson? I missed that.
Yes,
I guess if you do the math, I think it should just be $19,071.60. The 8 in there is
it's
the
not,
incorrect number.
it's not 19,000, I don't
If
believe it.
I may, Mr. Warden,
$3,000.
I heard somebody say they look like they have, Counselor LeBlanc?
we have to add the sum. The 18,000 was the remainder of what is in the grant. So the number is just skewed. We just need to add up the 2,000, the 887 and the 1,000, because that was our total. Those numbers are correct. So
All right, thank you. And who's got the new number? Did somebody add those three amounts up? Counselor Longmire, did you say you have it?
Yes,
What is it?
3,971.60 cents.
yes.
Thank you, Counselor Prout. So we'll make that amendment. Any other amendments to the minutes? Counselor LeBlanc?
I have a question, page 15 of 79.
Yes?
At the top, under meeting start times, it's where it starts, it's not that paragraph, it's underneath that. The CAO asked members to think about changing the council meetings to 2 weeks after committee of the whole. I was wondering if we're going to bring that up for discussion, or is it going to be left in the minutes here, or what? Because there was no motion to bring it back up.
It's not on the agenda for today. That's all I can say.
So what are we doing with this particular ask?
If I may, that was really just a point for future discussion. And the plan is that with the assistant of the clerk's department, we're going to come and talk about some other changes that we want to make to council meetings.
Mhm.
So I think the general discussion at that point was that we will be bringing this forward maybe in the month of March.
Okay.
Okay.
Now I have a time frame. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments, or changes? So would Councillor Prout, would you like to move an amendment to the motion on the floor, amending that number on page?
Okay, thank you
13?
very much. Under the community grant program, I would move that we accept the number of $3,971.60 for the total of the grants that were distributed, or were the motion to distribute on page 13 of 79.
Is there a seconder for that amendment?
There you go.
Councillor Longmire seconds. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote on the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? Motion's carried. We have a motion on the floor to adopt the minutes of December 14th as amended. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. There's no business arising from the minutes. Down to 6.1. Information report, community development update, December 2021. This is only for information. So are there any questions arising out of this report?
To receive.
Motion to receive for information by the deputy warden.
Nope, don't need a motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any discussion with respect to that report? Councillor Connell.
Yeah, I see that they have recommended that that the planning on the east end be reviewed and the Cornwallis planning be reviewed, and wondering why Nicktoll isn't in that same request.
Mr. Dunphy or Mr. Dick, can you respond?
Hi, I can.
Yeah,
Cotw is included in the East End area plan, so therefore Cotw will be reviewed at the same time we go through the process of revising the East End plan.
All right, thank you.
yeah. Any other questions or comments with respect to the report? Thank you. So we'll move along to the next item on the agenda, which is the information report on unsightly and dangerous properties quarterly report.
Move to receive.
I believe the clerk says we don't need a motion. Is that right, Madam Clerk?
That's correct.
But we will invite questions. Councillor LeBlanc.
I only have a statement, not more. On page
In dangerous, so. Correct.
page 23, I find it that it's very clear. So I like this format. So I think this is something that we should continue to do. I can see that it works out fairly well. As far as I can see, it's clear and we know which region is where, and so it makes it nice to see. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, then we'll move along to the next item on the agenda, which is the recommendation report, East End Area MPS Land Use Bylaw Review. Deputy Warden, would you like to?
Recommendation that municipal council commence a review of the Annapolis County East End Area Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw and adopt a public participation program that would refer the review applications to the East End Area Advisory Committee and the Annapolis County Planning Advisory Committee for their review and recommendation, along with the applicable municipal or public meetings and advertisements.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor LeBlanc seconds. Discussion? Councillor Hudson?
Yes, perhaps someone can help me out. I lost something here. Help me out a little bit. We're going to do the county-wide plan and land use bylaw. Are we going to be doing this here that is proposed, and then in a few months' time turn around and do the same thing again when we do the county-wide?
Mr. Dick or Mr. Dunphy, would you like to respond? Mr. Dunphy?
Sure. Thank you, Warden. Basically, the way to describe it is this. The countywide plan covers all those areas that are not included in an existing plan and bylaw right now. So Bridgetown, as an example, has an existing municipal plan and bylaw. We'll be doing that as an area plan. So it will have a separate review from the countywide plan.
Okay.
Are we not going to repeat the work in the county-wide plan?
I apologize. I didn't quite catch that.
I say, are we not going to repeat all the work when we do the county-wide plan?
No. Simple way to describe it is because the consultants will be focusing on land use planning outside of those planning areas. And those planning areas like the East End, like Bridgetown and the rest, they will be done in-house by staff.
Okay, but again, they will form part of the county-wide plan.
They will be a subcomponent or an area plan of the countywide plan. But the countywide plan's rules wouldn't necessarily apply because you have an area plan where the rules that you create for those zoning areas would come first.
Okay, Councillor Hudson?
Yes, I think I read here somewhere that, let me see if I can find it. No, I just can't find what I'm looking for. I'm fine. Thank you.
Councillor Sheridan?
So in regards to the time limit that we have to complete the countywide plan, and with COVID hindering our ability to have public meetings, how is that going to affect our time in getting it complete in time?
Mr. Dick or Mr. Dunphy? Mr. Dunphy?
Well, if you notice, a couple of things, what we're doing is we're trying to have some meetings by Zoom to get things off. So you have a countywide plan meeting, I think is starting up on Thursday. That's your introduction. Basically, all we're hoping is that COVID will pass soon and we can open up soon. If it means that we can't meet those deadlines, then I guess what it's going to have to be is we will have to approach the province. And I suspect every other municipality will approach the province asking for extensions because of undue circumstances of COVID, making it very difficult to have public consultation, which is a cornerstone of every municipal plan review.
Thank you.
Deputy Warden?
Thank you very much. And through you, Warden, perhaps to Albert or the CAO. These countywide plan, when we start in this road with this countywide plan, we'll be taking in every borough in the county, right? We're not going to say, well, we're going to do from Annapolis down that area, from Annapolis down towards Victoria Beach, that whole area. It'll be every borough, right? Sort of like Carsdale, Thorns Cove and all of those. Is that right?
It is correct. It will apply to the entire and every piece of property in Annapolis County.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Councillor Hudson?
Yes, I found the reference that I was trying to look before. I'm looking on page 25 of 79, and under options for consideration, this is where perhaps where I was confused. And down, I think it's the second sentence. It reads, "It is the opinion of staff that the current area plans be retained as secondary plans to the upcoming county-wide municipal planning strategy and land use bylaws." So I guess that's where I was confused, is that it's not the preliminary document, it's a secondary document. And that's why I was thinking that there was a duplication of work here.
No, if I could, my understanding is that the requirement from the province is that by the end of 2023, we have to have planning in place for the whole county. Right now, we already have, I don't know, 3 or 4 existing what are called secondary plans, East End, Bridgetown, Cornwallis. And as you can see from the report, some of those are coming up for a 10-year review. So those are coming up for the 10-year review, whereas the rest of the county that isn't zoned is coming up for the first time under the new planning system. Okay, any other questions about that? If not, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion with respect to that motion? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion's carried. Next is 6.4.
Recommendation report Cornwallis Park, MPS, LUB review. that municipal council commence a review of the Cornwallis Park municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw and adopt a public participation program that would refer the review application to the Cornwallis Park Advisory Committee and the Annapolis County Planning Advisory Committee for the review and recommendation, along with the applicable public meetings and advertisements.
Is there a
Second.
seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Morrison. Discussion? Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. I'm glad to see that this process is now starting. There have been a lot of comments within the last year or so about land use in the Cornwallis Park area, and this will provide a forum for citizens to voice their views and recommendations in a timely manner. Thank you.
Other comments? Councillor LeBlanc?
Yes, thank you. On page 27, under the options for consideration, the very last sentence that was given in the option was to possibly, additionally, council may wish to consider including the service area of D Brook into the Cornwallis Park planning area. So obviously right now D Brook is not in there. So how do we discuss this particular piece?
That's a good thought. Councillor Morrison, I see your hand up, but I feel like I should go to staff first to get a response. Mr. Dunphy, was there a plan afoot to address this issue, or?
Thank you, Warden. I think it's more of a case of an option afoot. So if you recall, council made a previous motion with the Bridgetown area plan that they would include Carlton Corner and let's see, what was the name of the other street? Carlton Corner and Church Street, which are serviced areas that were in the county, which were unzoned previously, that they be included into the Bridgetown plan area. In terms of Cornwallis Park, just going on the same vein of thought, should council want to include and expand Cornwallis Park to include Deep Brook because it is a serviced area, that is something that council can consider and instruct staff to do by motion, now or later on. It's entirely up to council.
So is there some intention that this will come back to council for a decision?
It could, if there's, basically this is also just to gauge some interest of council. Do you want to do that? Whereas if you decide that you don't want to incorporate it into the Cornwallis Park plan review, then it will be part of the countywide plan. So it's a fallback position. It's going to go to the countywide plan anyway, but you can bring it in as part of the area plan for Cornwallis.
Thank you. Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. I'm a member of the Upper Clements Area Advisory Committee, and we've already begun the work of that committee. And during our consultations, Albert set out, as he normally does, very succinctly and concisely, some topics with which the Upper Clements Area Advisory Committee may wish to be concerned and may wish to include in its report. And with regard to that last sentence, my understanding of it is that that will be a subject considered by the Cornwallis Park Area Advisory Committee, which may result in recommendations to the Planning Advisory Committee, which may result in recommendations to council at an appropriate time, which council can accept or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morrison. That was well explained. Let me ask, Mr. Dunphy, is there some idea that this issue will come up before the Cornwallis Park Planning Advisory Committee? Is that on some agenda to come up? Is that the idea?
Currently, no, it is not, Warden. It can be, and as the councillor mentioned, there's a number of options going about looking at it. one council can direct staff directly to put it as part of the plan review and add it onto this motion that you have in place. Or you can put it back to the area advisory committee, let them mull it over, and then come back with a recommendation as the councillor said, through PAC and then through council, whether it should be added in as part of that review as opposed to the countywide plan review. So there's two options.
Sitting here today, I have no idea of whether it's a good idea or not. I haven't seen a map of what part of Deep Brook would be included. I just have no idea. So I think there should be some formality. Councilor Morrison, do you agree there should be some formality of bringing this subject up somehow?
Well, it appears as if council makes a decision today on any of these matters, which of course it is our right and privilege to do so, we will be limiting the discussion that will take place at the meeting of the Cornwallis Park Area Advisory Committee. We have quite an extensive process in this county for land use bylaws, et cetera. And I would think the course I would like anyway is to let the local planning advisory, the local area advisory committee go through its deliberations, and that council awaits the report that will come from the planning advisory committee.
That makes sense to me. Councilor Morrison, what is that last sentence? Do you think that would prohibit the matter coming forward the way you suggest?
No, not a bit.
Okay, good. So then I take it that it's this issue of the Deep Brook Cornwallis Park planning area, perhaps from this discussion, I'll invite other comments. Mr. Dunphy and Councilor Morrison, you can take steps to bring this forward at the planning advisory level. But I'll leave it to either the councillor or staff to do that following this discussion. Any other comments from any other councillors? Councillor Connell.
Just a question, I guess, for Albert or David. When our whole county is zoned and we have the independent zoning of the ones that are existing now, 2 years goes by and all of a sudden somebody wants to review something or ask for an amendment in the individual, in one of the individual zoned areas, like take for instance Cornwallis. So if somebody comes up 2 years after all the countywide plans done, and somebody in Cornwallis wants to have Cornwallis area reviewed, at that time, do we only review the Cornwallis zoned area, or do we include, all of a sudden we got to do whole county wide open again?
Mr. Dunphy?
The answer, councillor, is really quite simple there. It would only be limited to Cornwallis Park because it would be a separate secondary area.
And that would be my concern of adding Deep Brook to the Cornwallis areas, because same as the Nictal area or any of other zones, is that if it's in an individual zoned area and all of a sudden somebody had a request because it was the area was building up and there was new requests for a zoning issue, we'd only have to deal with those specific area instead of all of a sudden wide open county plan open again.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I don't see any, so I will call for the vote on the motion on the floor. I see, do you have your hand up, Deputy Warden?
Well, I didn't. It was more or less a question to go along with what Councillor Connell was making is, and I see it's just, I also go back to that line. It says the serviced area of Deep Brook. But if I was living down on the far end of Deep Brook and all of a sudden the county plan was going to come in mind, I don't know if I'd want to be bunched in with Cornwallis. So I would want to have my say as to whether my area was going to be have the same zoning as what Cornwallis has. So I think that's the same line Fuzzy was hitting on. All of a sudden, for somebody living in Deep Brook to be thrown in with Cornwallis might not be the most, advantageous thing or for them. They might want to have their say. As I brought back up earlier, when it comes to zoning, will we be going to each borough to question those people as to how they want their area zoned? Thank you. That's the only point I'm making. I'm not trying to cause conflict or anything. I'm just making that
Mr.
point.
Dunphy, my understanding is there'll be a public participation process on the Deep Brook going into Cornwallis Park, or even there'll be there's going to be, I think, 11 different public meetings throughout the county on the countywide plan. Are both of those thoughts correct?
It's actually a little double that. The initial round of meetings is 11. That is to develop the plan with your consultant. After your consultant has developed the plan, that is worked with the Planning Advisory Committee, the second round of meetings is to present that plan as council has drafted it to the committee. So that's why we end up with 22 meetings. And that doesn't include the extra ancillary ones like special interest groups meetings and stuff like that. But 22 meetings is the base that we're looking at. And they will be held in various areas that won't be covered by the secondary plans. There's not much sense going back into the secondary plans when they have an independent process already going. So it'll be in other spaces. If Deep Brook, for example, isn't included, then we would want to be looking at someplace around close to Deep Brook.
Other questions, Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. As a member of the Cornwallis Park Area Advisory Committee, I can assure any of my colleagues that I will not be in favor of throwing any citizens and their areas into the Cornwallis Park plan. As I mentioned before, we have a very detailed and a very good public participation process with regard to zoning. And I, as the counselor for that area, and as a member of the Cornwallis Park Area Advisory Committee, will do my best to ensure that we adhere to that process in all of our committee work. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I don't see any, so I will call for a vote on the motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Barto?
Maybe I missed the boat, but on the agenda, I was just looking through that again while we were talking about other things, and I don't notice that, and maybe it's in the CAO's or the warden's report, is discussions on the status and the timing for the installation of the internet and what's boiled to the surface lately on that. I think it's an important issue.
Well, you can ask some questions of the CAO when we've put his report on the agenda.
Do at that point?
Yeah, at that point you can ask, and that's the point of having it there. You can ask any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Next is 6.5 recommendation report, Annapolis County Waterline Addition Hillside.
Recommendation report.
Yep.
PBR, renewal, Annapolis County Waterline Addition Hillside Drive, $105,407. That municipal council authorized the period of borrowing in the amount not exceeding $102,556 be extended for a further period not exceeding 12 months from the date of the approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hudson seconds. Discussion? Councillor Sheridan?
So we haven't had an update on that. Where does that sit now? Are they still working toward going forward with this plan?
Mr. Dick?
To the counselor, yes, we're still looking at options going forward. There was an issue that surfaced probably, I'm going to say maybe 6 weeks ago, where there was some contamination in some of the local wells around the salt shed for the province. So the plans that we had originally envisioned was just going up that particular street may have to be expanded to go down the highway. So we're reviewing those plans as we speak.
Thank you.
Councillor LeBlanc?
If we look on page 28, I just have a question of after the cost from federal, provincial homeowners. It's with the second sentence. The principal cost per home, if there's an if all 11 participate, is $9,582.45. So if there are 3 that do not participate, then the numbers for the others will increase. Number 1, I presume they know that. And number 2, will it cause any other grief if they don't all participate?
Yes, it will. Remember that these are water and wastewater projects that are not to cost the rest of the ratepayers anything. This is supposed to be fully supported by the benefiting homeowners.
Right.
But given the comment that I just made to Councillor Sheridan, there may be an expansion of this project, because as I understand it, there's probably 10 wells that have been infiltrated by salt residue. So the plan now is we may expand the plan to go right down Highway 201 to include some other opportunities for people to hook up to our water system. So if that doesn't happen, that this is the cost that we've determined at $9,500 based on 11 residents. If it happens to be 8, then the cost will go up proportionally, and they can determine whether they want to continue to participate in this or not. And I will advise council that these ratepayers are all members of the Annapolis Royal Water System. They are not our water users at this point in time. So this is an expansion of our system. We've invested certainly a lot of staff time over the last, I'm going to say 12 months. We've incurred some expenses associated with engineering fees. So that's where we stand at this point. My expectations is that we will expand the system down Highway 201. That might mean digging up the highway, which is something that we're not looking forward to doing, but we're waiting for the Department of Transportation to come back and give us some updates in terms of what impact it is on the water users in that area.
So if I could follow up with that, thank you very
Okay.
much for all that explanation. If it's caused by the salt that was deposited in their shed, is there any inkling that the province will help us or help the residents more?
Yeah, so those that are impacted by the salt infiltration, that will be covered by the province.
Okay.
We're looking at other opportunities. Certainly the people in Hillside, they have to pay for themselves. And if we expand this to other ratepayers, we will share the cost among those ratepayers that are not impacted by the province.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next,
6.6, recommendation report, TBR, renewal municipal land and buildings, $7.2 million, $7,200,000. That municipal council authorized the period of borrowing in the amount not exceeding $7,200,000 be extended for a further period not exceeding 12 months from the date of the approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs.
is there a seconder for that? Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Connell seconds. Are there any questions? Questions or comments? Councillor Hudson? You're muted, Councillor Hudson. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, oh, here we go. Sorry for the delay there. Why are we continuing with the $7.2 million? I believe this has to do with the Gordonston. We're definitely not going to.
I think that Councillor Hudson, we can leave some of this discussion to the in-camera portion of the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
But Mr. Warden, if I may, this is at this point is more of a housekeeping issue
Yes.
for the short term and subject to the discussion in closed. We want to make sure that we have the full requirement should it ever be needed.
Correct.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next.
6.7.
Yeah.
Recommendation report, AM-1.4.14, low income tax exemption policy amend. That municipal council amend AM-1.4.14, low income tax exemption policy by increasing the exemption amount to $350 and increasing the allowable income amount to $27,000. 7-day notice.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Morrison seconds. Discussion? Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. This is a subject with which I've been seized ever since I've been on council. And I think that this year I thank the staff for coming in with a recommendation that I think is just and reasonable. Thank you.
Councillor Prout?
Thank you. I would just take a moment to echo Councillor Morrison's comments and as I've stated in years past, this is one of the among the best things I think that the county does for residents, and it is sorely needed. And I look forward, I shouldn't say I look forward, I try my best to reach out to all the people on the list in my district who qualify and to make them aware of it if they're new persons on the list, and chatting with those that I've worked with in the past. So it's a very worthwhile thing, and I think it's among the best things that we do for people in our district. So thank you very much. Glad to see it.
Thank you. And I will echo those comments as well, particularly in these days of inflation. I think it's very important that we keep up with the value of money on programs like this. Other comments or questions? Councillor Sheridan?
I was just going to say, there's going to be a greater need this time around because of the value of homes. And it's great to see that we'll be able to try and keep these people, the seniors, in their homes because they benefit the greatest from this. Thank you.
Yeah, correct.
Other comments or questions? Councillor Redden?
Yeah, I've always felt that we're a little bit broad in our catchment of income. You know, the way this policy currently reads, any dependent children's income is lumped into the income for the household, and then you've got things like baby bonus and stuff like that are in there. It's not the baby bonus anymore. I don't remember what it's called. It's probably never been called that in my lifetime. But anyways, that we're a little bit broad in our catchment and how we catch income, and that we're probably excluding some young families who have either, you know, come into hard times or have houses themselves. So that's just my sort of thought, maybe something for staff to consider next year.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? I don't see any, so I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. 6.8.
Recommendation report, Community Grants Program, current applications. That a municipal council approve the allocation of grants as presented in Appendix A form from the 2021-22 Community Grants Program in accordance with AM-1.4.9 Community Grants Policy for a total of $9,200 as follows. $1,200, $1,200 to Granville Center Community Hall Association, and $8,000 to Lawrencetown Exhibition Youth Arena.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Connell seconds. Discussion? Councillor Connell?
Yes, I see that the Lawrencetown Exhibition Youth Arena there has asked for a fair amount. But I also, being on council the previous 16, 18 years, every time the county talked about centralizing or maybe creating or building a new youth arena, the towns and areas that have arenas bumped up their security to keep their own. So in my mind, it's been very, very forward on the communities that have arenas. They don't want to lose them. The arenas are used by several people all over our county. I realize since we've taken over the community of Bridgetown, now the county owns the arena. Sometimes the feeling is that we support Bridgetown Arena more than we support Middleton and Lawrencetown. And it's great for councilors to think that you can drive to Bridgetown and use Bridgetown Arena, but it's not all that easy. When you belong to minor hockey, and Wendy will probably cover some of that too, is that if you're in the East End, you play in the arenas in the East End through the minor hockey association. You don't have a choice to jump ship and go to Bridgetown Arena because the county owns it. The Lawrencetown Arena is a small arena. I can tell you, I played there from the time I was probably 8, 7, 6 years old. I walked to that arena. A lot of kids don't have the opportunity to be driven to Bridgetown every time there's a hockey practice or every time there's a hockey game or anything. The Lawrencetown Arena has been home to a lot of kids that didn't have the opportunity to have parents to drive them. It's a community area that's important to the community. So I support this grant because I cannot see in the future of the county even wasting the time and energy to thinking about building one rink in our county, because it doesn't work. We've had teams from Parker's Cove to Springfield play in Lawrencetown Arena. Like I said, it's a small arena, but when you talk to the individuals that play in that arena, they love it. It's down, I think they play 4 against 4 instead of 5 against 5. It's a little more challenging. So I think that for the future, for us even thinking about a central rink, is that, like I said, every time we talk about it, Middleton bumps up and does a bunch of repairs to their arena because they don't want to lose it. Lawrencetown's in the same state. Bridgetown's always been in the same state. Every time we talked about closing Bridgetown rink and building one in the center of the county, maybe in Lawrencetown, Bridgetown would apply for a bunch of grants and up their ante on the rink. So it's something that we should just not participate in thinking about, wasting our energy. We have 3 good rinks that are serving the purpose of this county. So I support the group.
Councillor Prout?
Thank you. I would echo my support for the Lawrencetown Youth Arena. I can recall, and there are probably others on council, although as I look around, there are a lot of younger faces. But I can recall when the Lawrencetown Arena had the only artificial ice in the eastern part of the county. The Middleton's arena hadn't been built at that time, not the new one, hadn't been completed. And I can remember high school hockey games in Lawrencetown. I can remember when I was playing hockey in my, I won't say youth, but in my younger years, and playing there. I know people who play there on the women's teams and the tournaments, and I'm very much in support of this request. So thank you.
Councillor Sheridan?
I will also be supporting this. Many hours were spent in the Lawrencetown rink with my kids. They played minor hockey as well as high school hockey. Ice time was scarce, so we would book the ice down in Lawrencetown. So there was many, many good times had by a lot of individuals in Lawrencetown rink. Thank you.
Councillor Hudson?
I will support this grant application as well. However, I would question the amount. They're asking for 8,000, but from the information provided, it appears that they only require 5. So I just
I didn't pick that up myself, Councillor Hudson.
well, if you look at page 41 of 79 in paragraph in number 3.
Where are you again?
Page 41 of 79. Number 3. It says
If I could clarify,
I'm sorry.
could I clarify?
Yeah.
If you look at the way it's read, it says an amount plus HST. If you add the HST to that and then do your totals, I think your final total will be correct.
If I may comment on that, they get 100% of their HST back.
Okay.
They are a nonprofit organization that get 100% of their tax back. But again, going back to page 41 of 79, number 3, it says the amount is 21,000 plus HST. The arena was successful in securing a grant from the Department of Community, Culture and Heritage in the amount of $8,050, and the arena is contributing $8,100. So,
That's stupid.
so another 8 is 24,000. If you add our grant to that.
This was prepared by Nancy Chisholm. Mr. Dick or Ms. Campbell, can you clarify the point Mr. Councillor Hudson has brought up? Ms. Chisholm, I see your hand up. I recognize you.
Hi there. They are, the amount is plus HST. And if you notice on, I think page 23 of the recommendation report, the group explains that they are a nonprofit organization, but they're not a registered charity. They are registered for HST, and the HST on our capital expenditures are available to us as an input tax credit against the HST which they collect. So they receive no HST rebates as they do not qualify as a public service body. They have tried before. I actually spoke with the applicant on the phone about the HST because that came up as it was being reviewed by our management as well. So the numbers actually do work out. So it is the 21 plus the HST. And the amount received from the province that was approved was $8,050. The Lawrencetown Arena itself will put in $8,100, and they're requesting from Municipal Council $8,000 for a total, including the HST of $24,150. But we did explore and ask about the HST, and they explained that they were not eligible.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hudson, would you like to respond?
Yes, I would question if that is accurate.
By that, you're referring to the HST, are you?
That's correct. That's correct. How it works, and has nothing to, this would be any business operation. You send out invoices and you have receivables, right? And on those invoices, you collect HST from on those invoices. Okay. And then on the other hand, you have expenses and you pay HST on those expenses. And in an organization, basically what you do, you net the two. You subtract from what the amount you receive, you subtract the amount that you paid. So everyone, including, I would believe, the arena, the Lawrencetown Arena, would get benefit of a refund, or it's not a refund. They get a benefit of a saving, through the HST calculation and how it works. So you collect income, you collect on one side and you pay on the other, and you only net it when you file your HS2 reports.
Councillor Connell?
I don't know if it's a reason for that, but the Lawrencetown Exhibition Grounds actually belongs to the Federation of Agricultural, I think you'll find. Same as the Lawrencetown Exhibition puts on the exhibition as a not-for-profit, but the property is owned by the Federation of Agricultural. So I don't know if that has something to tie in with why they're not eligible or not, but it's not a clean-cut association-owned, land facility. It's ran by an organization, but it's not owned by the organization. So I don't know if that has something to do with the way the taxes are collectible or not, but if they've tried to collect it before and they can't collect it, I'm not the wizard on that either. So
rather than continue this discussion and trying to resolve it here, I see two options. One is to have an amendment to the motion, just say subject to review of the HST. The other would be to put it off for a month and have staff review the HST and report back. I think I'll go to Councillor LeBlanc. You're muted, Councillor LeBlanc.
Is that better? Okay. Listening to all of this, and I understand that it's always been the same. Maybe we have to take a different stand and look at if we can collect the HST ourselves because we're giving the money to a non-for-profit. That's a possibility to look at. However, they do need the money, so if we put it on hold, that's another whole month to be putting it on hold. And I believe Nancy Chisholm has presented her case along with Councillor Connell, giving some of his explanation of the background of the ownership of the exhibition grounds. I really don't know what to say. If it puts a hold on their work, it could cause a problem, and I'm all in favor of giving them the money because of it's something to do with not only the youth to have a place to go with, but it's also a place for other people to, whatever age group it is, to have for entertainment, especially these hard times, because the cost there is for renting is fairly good, compared to other places, and it is needed. So I don't know how we get the HST back. If they can't get it, maybe we can do something we can do, but do we hold up the process is my question for them to continue on their work.
Mr. Dick, did I see your hand up for a minute there?
You did. Thank you, Mr. Warden. If I can just make a comment, I think the suggestion made by the warden is probably the most prudent in terms of make it subject to whatever the HST rulings are. In terms of Councillor Hudson's comments, he's right in terms of whether this is considered a commercial operation or not, then it's a fully ITC'd. I'm not sure in the province of Nova Scotia if they consider ice rentals to be commercial or not. Typically, they're not, because really the only people that are offering it are municipalities. I know in Ontario, there's a lot of private arenas that are subject to the HST rules. So here, I'm not sure what the rules are in terms of the revenues. I suspect that they may not be subject to HST, and then you wouldn't be able to offset your expenditures against the revenues, and they'd be treated much like a municipality and getting a specific refund percentage. So if I can echo what the warden was saying, is maybe approve it subject to the discussion on HST, and then we can get the money to the Lawrencetown people.
So Councillor Hudson, would you move an amendment to the motion that at the end just say subject to review, or subject to a review of the HST?
Yes, I would.
Is there a seconder to that amendment? Councillor Redden seconds. Discussion on the amendment. I'll echo as well that I'm a little familiar with the HST system, having run a law firm in the past, and Councillor Hudson and CAO Dick echo my understanding of the way it works. I don't see any hands up, so I'll call for a vote on the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Now discussion back to the main motion as amended. I'd like to make one statement. It's that I enjoyed seeing in the report about the rink the fact that they have shinny hockey. Because I was one of those kids that I could walk to a rink in suburban Toronto where they flooded a rink every winter. And I was one of those kids, you got your gear on at home and you put your skates over your stick and you waddled your way up to the rink with all your gear on, and you couldn't wait. And you were there for 3 hours playing hockey. And that's how you learn to play hockey, not when you're, in organized hockey. It's when you're playing shinny. So I was very pleased to see that, and I support the motion. Councillor Redden?
I don't have a personal anecdote like that, Warden, to add in, but my last year here in Lawrencetown on council and going to the village committee meetings and the exhibition grounds meetings, it's really quite a community here, and I did want to talk about that. And there's a lot of volunteers who put a lot of effort into maintaining this grounds, in spite of it being a rather complicated arrangement, as Councillor Connell alluded to. And this rink, from what I understand from the report and my brief discussions with a few people, seems to be a real cornerstone, and I just wanted to voice my support that way. And I'm really happy with the amendment that is proposed. It keeps things moving forward. This seems to be, if I understood the report properly, something that needs to be done while the ice is in or cold, and I'm glad we're not holding that up. That's it.
Further comments, Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. Of course, I support this, but I also want to let my colleagues know that my entire hockey career was spent in street hockey, which I think might be a little rougher than shinny on the spectrum of roughness, on Dalbin Street in Sydney. And it was used as a vehicle for teamwork, for learning a bit of skill, but also perhaps sometimes using your Gordie Howe elbows to settle scores with folks who had done some egregious works in the classroom or the playground. Thank you.
Councillor Longmire?
Thank you. I just want to say these communities are passionate, and I applaud each and every one of them that form these volunteer groups to continue on providing these super services for all ages. It is that connectedness that I think we all long for, and certainly COVID has shown us that this ability to come together, be outside, which helps us as well during things like pandemics, are healthy. They're healthy for our mental health, healthy physical, for our physical health. And I just want to say that I am so on side with these types of grants and want to see these places thrive. Thank you.
Councillor Barto? You're muted, Councillor Barto.
That better, yeah. Just adding a little history due to my experiences. I think this is great. I'm in support of it. I think that there's so much more time that the kids can have on the ice than the way I used to do it. We would go and scrape all the snow off every day. We would flood the ice. We spent hours daily preparation of ice surface in local community. And if the kids could have spent that much time, on the ice instead of with their skates on, instead of working, preparing it, that would be a good thing.
Anybody else? Deputy Warden?
I'll be supporting this motion because I think it's good for community, children, and the rest of it to have a place to go in this arena. Although I never knew there was one there growing up, it's a good thing. I didn't play hockey. The closest I got to playing hockey was down on the pond, which is now a tertiary for Annapolis. And I'll leave it at that, but it's a good thing. Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, I'll call for a vote on the motion as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. The next item, let me just check my watch. Take a break before 11 o'clock. I put a late edition on about the comfort centers, and this came to my attention, obviously, over the weekend when we lost power in the county. I saw that Brian Ord, our EMO coordinator, did send to all the councillors a list of the comfort centers and a list of the comfort center policy. I went to look up the comfort center policy on our website, and I saw that it's not there. For some reason, it just isn't there. It's 1.4 point something, and it's not there. So I draw that to the attention of the staff that if it's one of our policies, it should be there. Now, I'm looking for help here because I was one of the people that did not know where the comfort centers were. I've lived here for 17 years, and I guess I would have assumed that the closest one to me was the Bridgetown Fire Hall, but I didn't know. I did see the list from Mr. Ord. Is that list publicly available? Does anyone on staff help me out on that? I don't see any.
Don, can you manage that?
Sorry, what was that? I think we overspoke, David.
I think Don can handle that, Mr. Warden.
Is she frozen there? No, I see her moving. Ms. Campbell.
She was on the weekend when her house was 51 degrees, yes.
Is that list of comfort centers publicly available?
Yes,
Where is it found?
in the Remo section of our website.
Okay. Okay, I don't know if it perhaps should be a little more prominent. I do note, I read the policy, and I saw that it's really up to each comfort center themselves to make the decision as to whether to open or not. And the idea was that if it's past 72 hours, it certainly likely should be open. I think some people in our county were getting close to 48 hours on the weekend, and I can tell you, life's different without electricity. Luckily, I have gravity-fed water and a wood stove, but I know particularly a lot of the new people, we've got all these new people coming into the county, and they wouldn't necessarily know what to do in this type of situation. I invite any other discussion about our comfort center policy. Ms. Campbell?
Hopefully you can hear me. I know there's quite a lag because my internet's very slow. The comfort centers are a balancing act. We also had to take into consideration on the weekend, not trying to encourage people to go out on roads that were dangerous to travel. And we had limitations in regard to COVID gathering. But certainly this is something that's going to come up as part of the new emergency management plan that Brian has developed and will be coming from advisory committee to the council for review.
Good. Oh, glad to hear it. I just thought with the events of the weekend that the council should recognize that it happened. And for those people that might want to watch this online, realize that there are comfort centers and there is a policy and that we have discussed it and it will come back. I think it's important. Any other comments? If not, we'll move along to committee and organization reports. The first is my report. Right up here. Okay, this is events as a warden since the Committee of the Whole meeting in December. On December the 15th, I attended a meeting of mayors, wardens, and CAOs and managers of Valley Waste and Kings Transit at the Kings County Council chambers to discuss the 2-year pilot project. On December 17th, I met with our lawyers in Halifax. On December 21st, I met with Rachel Brighton, who's the business development officer, one of the two actually, for the Nova Scotia Department of Agriculture. I wanted to discuss with her what the county might do to further agriculture in the county. I met with Mr. Dick on the 5th of January to review outstanding matters. And also on the 5th, I met with Danny Bruce, who's the president of the Annapolis County branch of the Federation of Agriculture, again, to discuss what possibilities there are with respect to agriculture in the county. Any questions about any of that? Deputy Warden?
Thank you. Has there been any talk? You've talked to Danny Bruce, and he represents the agricultural people, right, in the county. Does he mention anything about hemp?
No.
No. Okay, that's all I want to know. Growing hemp, and I don't mean for smoking. I mean for building.
Yeah. Councilor LeBlanc?
Okay, I'm going to go a different route from there. I'm going to go to the, if correct me, you said you went to the December 15th meeting with all the different municipalities about this pilot?
Right.
Okay, so my question to you is, at that time, were all the different municipalities signed up to be part of this 2-year pilot program? That you know?
We had just approved it the day before at our council meeting, or at our committee of the whole meeting anyway, or making the recommendation. I can't answer that. It proceeded as though they all would be, I can say that, but I don't have a specific recollection if they had all been formally approved.
Well, what surprised me at a meeting I found out was that one had just finalized the approval of the pilot on December 21st. I just kind of thought that everybody else was in there already signed up and they had been waiting for our county to approve. It's just a question and it's just an observation. And I wondered if there were any others that weren't.
My recollection is that you remember that at the committee of the whole, we approved a recommendation to council to enter into the pilot project. My recollection is that draft motion went to all the municipalities at the same time for formal approval. But I could be wrong. That's the best I can say at this point. And I'm assuming now that everybody has had it formally approved, and I'm waiting for a notice of a meeting to see where we go from here, is where we are at the moment on the pilot project. There's nothing scheduled in my calendar at the moment.
So they gave you no month that it was going to be started? Because what I heard that they weren't probably looking at before February or even March.
Oh my goodness, I hope not. That's all I can say. Like I said, I'm anticipating getting a notice that we're going to be, hiring a new executive director, I guess is the title. And I think that's the next order of business to get the thing moving.
Okay, well, there's a lot of different things there that are don't seem to be lining up, is all I'm going to say.
Sure. Mr. Dick, did you want to add to that?
If I can, Mr. Warden, I received a request yesterday for a meeting on Friday of this week. And the request is for a preparation for the next working group meeting. And I suspect that has to do with the IMSA. Number 2 was next steps IMSA pilot project. And number 3 was next steps REN. That meeting has since been postponed, given 3 of us were not able to make that meeting. So it's I think they're trying to reschedule that meeting for the following week, but I haven't gotten an update on that yet.
Is that just for the CAOs, David?
That's just for the CAOs, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions on my report? Seeing none, I will, do I need a motion to accept my report, Madam Clerk?
Currently, because we haven't changed it to different, you can receive these reports for information, but moving forward, we will likely just forego that. Today, you can, please.
Okay, so I take it, is there a motion to receive my report for information? Deputy Warden moves, seconded by Councilor Redden. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. We put on the agenda the CAO's report, and I know that Councilor Bartow has a question, but Mr. Dick, is there any update you'd like to give council before we invite questions?
I haven't submitted a CAO report for this meeting, primarily given the fact that I was gone for 2 weeks. And since I've been back, I've really been only working on items that will be discussed in the closed session.
Okay. Are there any questions for the CAO? Deputy Warden, is that your hand up? No?
Sorry.
Councilor Bartow, did you have a question?
Yeah, I think that I'm getting tons of calls from the public. I think that the public deserves some kind of a report on the status of where we are for hookups and why things have slowed down and why we aren't at a position now that's better than where we actually are.
If I may, Mr. Warden, maybe if you can redirect that question during closed, and you might determine from that discussion that there are things that you can describe to your constituents. But at this point, I'm not comfortable speaking about any of the specific issues until council has a full discussion and understanding of what they are.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the CAO? Councilor Sheridan?
Just pertaining to the internet, just a quick question in regards to the mapping. I had received a call from a resident and it doesn't show them on the map, but I know we had conversations regarding that there would be towers or some way for them to get internet service. I just want to clarify that that is correct.
Can you give me more specifics to that, please?
It's near Bloomington Mountain, the Bloomington Nicktaw area. They don't see themselves on the map to receive service. But I know we did have talks in regards to towers or some kind of satellite that they would be able to get service.
Okay, so I can't answer that specifically at this point. I know the discussions that we've had, I think Councilor LeBlanc asked about the towers. Certainly that's something that we can have the new proponent acquire. The other thing that they did talk about is expanding the service in areas that weren't being serviced originally. I'm not sure if this one is, but maybe I can get some answers for you later this morning.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the CAO? Councillor Prout?
Thank you. More a comment than a question. And just to point out that District 1, I've had a couple calls recently. Again, frustration being expressed on in an area that was long before now to have been completely hooked up. So the questions are not limited to any district there across the county as far as I'm concerned. And looking forward to information we can hear in cameras. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions for the CAO? Thank you. I assume we need a motion. I guess there wasn't really a report to receive, was there? So we'll just move along. Let me just look at my watch, 10:30. I think we'll try to break at around 10:45 and then come back for the presentation at 11. So the King's Transit Authority report. Deputy Warden, there's a motion there.
There's no motion, is it?
What page would that be on the motion?
Page
On the
3.
3 of 79.
3 of 79.
If you can't find it, I'll read it and you can move it. How's that?
Sure, but it's not on my paper.
Page
says
3.
King's Transit, oh, here we go. That committee of the whole received the King's Transit December report for information as circulated.
Is there a seconder for that? Second, Councillor LeBlanc seconds. Questions or comments? Councillor Redden?
Am I understanding this correctly? It looks like we're covering sort of 90% of our costs with fares. Is that, have I understood that properly there?
Boy.
Could Mr. Dick or Councillor LeBlanc, can either of you respond to that question?
No, not particularly. If you look at the bottom of page 4, no, page 2, ridership and revenue, the last line there, do you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we're recovering, but we're only like at 55% of, or 0.82 of what it was in 2017. So if we only have about approximately half in 2021, we're doing a little bit better than, you know, than we did the previous year, but are we covering? No, no.
Mr. Dick? I'll come back to you, Councillor Redden. Mr. Dick wanted to add something, I think.
Sure. I think if you look on page 67, if you look at the very top, it's got fares of 57 and 15 with total revenues of 404, which is a operating grant.
Yeah,
I will say in conjunction with this, I did meet with the new manager of King's Transit virtually on Friday of last week to talk about the proposed budget for the upcoming year. I didn't really want to speak to that issue specifically because there was a number of questions that I had in terms of the numbers that they presented, and he has to get back to me. So I didn't feel it was worth speaking to it until they've given us a revised copy for the 2023 budget period.
Yeah,
Councillor Redden?
I completely missed that the operating grant was in there in our revenues, which explains why everything is so rosy and not the other way around. My apologies.
Any other questions or comments? Deputy Warden?
Thank you. So, and more of a question, please. When we go into this intermunicipal agreement with these other counties, will that initiative that we're taking, and a percentage of it we're given. Is that just for the operation, the management side of it? And we'll still have these figures from King's Transit and Valley Waste. We'll still have the same expenses, but this intermunicipal agreement we're going into will still have that share. Do you understand where I'm going here?
Not exactly, but.
Okay, so we're going
if
into
I
an
could-
intermunicipal agreement.
Yeah, if I could, I think I can respond though, and let's see if I answer your question.
Okay.
And Mr. Dick can help me out, but right now, our relationship with King's Transit is that we're not a member, we're a client. We use the system, but there is an agreement that's now about 9 years old that says that we have to pick up a portion of their deficit. So to me, as a lawyer, that's quite unusual that we're not a member, but we still have to pick up a part of the deficit. But that's my understanding of the current situation. When we go into the 2-year pilot project, as I understand it, we go back to square one and we decide what type of financial relationship, if I can put it that way, all the municipalities want to have with respect to the transit system. So we go through that for 2 years. And at the end, we get a new proposal as to how it's going to work. And at that point in time, Annapolis would decide whether they want to join as a member or whether they would want to remain as a client and a user. That's my current understanding of where we are. Mr. Dick, can you help me out on that? Am I close to being right?
That's correct.
So to get this straight in my head, if I can just, we're going to still have the same expenses we historically have had with transit and Valley Waste, right? And then this intermunicipal agreement is going to be a little cost over those for 2 years.
Yes.
For 2 years.
Well, I see.
For 2 years, and then it'll level out.
For 2 years, we're still a client. We're still paying under that old 9-year-old agreement. And then the expenses for the pilot project are on top of that, if that was your question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else? Councillor Hudson.
This has just been an observation of mine over the past couple of weeks. There were different buses coming through Bridgetown. The ones that are presently coming through are large buses, much larger than the ones that were coming through previously. They appear to be older buses, and I was wondering if this is a permanent change or just something of a temporary nature.
Can anyone answer that question, Mr. Dick or Councillor LeBlanc? Councillor LeBlanc, would you want to try that?
I'll give it a shot. What has happened is the new buses that we've received seem to be having some problems, and basically there's no air suspension on the Eldorado, which makes it hard to drive. And I said, well, what it means mainly is that it would run and shut down, and then it would go for 15 minutes and shut down again. So they figured out that it's possibly the fire sensors that are kicking in because it's getting too hot and So they've been using I guess you're going to say the older buses, or the buses that have been they have to take care of the business of getting the people around. And they're still working on the buses that were given to King's Transit to get in service. So is it going to continue? It could be a yes, it could be a no. It all depends on how the buses are going to react and if they're working or if they have to be, replaced with one that is able to run down the road.
No, I just asked that in relation to the fact is that, in relation to the ridership is down. you know, and these are very large buses. And I guess previously, I guess we have all witnessed, you know, buses going through our areas that have very few riders on it.
No.
And I'm sure these older buses are far more expensive to operate than the ones in the past.
I'm hopeful, and I can't say that I know, that this will all be part of these discussions over the next 2 years about what kind of buses to use and all that sort of thing. Deputy Warden?
Thank you. I've kind of, you know, talked about this for a couple of years now, and the empty buses that I see going up and down my roads here. You know, it's very seldom I ever see anybody on the bus. So before we end up with a nasty decision coming, I wonder if we should be a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe we should be advertising and getting people to use the buses more. You know, let people know that they're out there. I mean, we all know they're out there, but there's some kind of social stigmatism about using the bus. And we need to reverse that. You know, how many times have I heard them called the loser cruiser or something like that? And it's horrible. It's a good system. It goes up and down the road, and we just need more people using it. Is there some kind of thing that we could do to get more people using the buses? Thank you.
Well, they're certainly going, if I may, Mr. Warden.
Go ahead, Councilor.
They're certainly going to be giving some, putting someone on the job of explaining and seeing, you know, saying how good it is and how it works. There's going to be some kind of media releases and information and advertising and such, but I mean, we can't compare the last 2 years to the years before, because you see what's happened during COVID. The numbers are half. So it's COVID has, you know, it's done its job on transit. So that's where we're sitting right now. So maybe after COVID is done, maybe the bus will be used as it used to be, which was double the numbers. Now, can I change the? I guess it's the way people think. Can we change what they think about the comment that you just used about the bus system? Sometimes there's some things you can't change, or you could just make it different and say how you know comfortable it is. Don't have to worry about this. Don't have to worry about insurance. Don't have to worry about the weather. They'll drive you there. You don't have to get a license. If you don't have one, don't worry about it. They'll get you there. It's going to have to be the way it's presented to the public. And I know most of the public, if we sit back, we can come up with some positive things about bus transit. Does it take longer? Yes. Well, you know, that's just one of those things. You can't stop for everybody, and it's going to take less time. If you stop for people, then it's going to take a little bit of time to from A to B. So they're looking at advertising. They're looking at doing stuff like that. Did I answer your question, Deputy Warden?
I guess so. I'll take that for an answer. Thank you. Good explanation. Good explanation.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
I can give you just two things. Number one, all of the bus drivers are all have all been vaccinated, and that was one thing. And they're now at this point just keeping the rapid test reserved for the drivers as far as it goes. And the third thing, they will be hiring a what do they call them? Accounting coordinator, as the other one has put in her resignation. So those are three things that are maybe of interest. And I'll leave it at that.
There's a motion on the floor to receive the report for information and circulated. Unless there are any further questions or comments, I'll call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I think we'll call for a break at this point in our agenda. We'll have a 15-minute break, and we'll come back a little before 11 o'clock because we anticipate that the presentation will begin right at 11. All right, thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. This is the resumption of the Committee of the Whole meeting for the County of Annapolis. And the next item on the agenda is the presentation from the Annapolis Waterkeepers. And I see Mr. McCurdy and Ms. Cranston on my screen. Hello, welcome. We've had a chance to review the information package that you circulated. Thank you very much for the detail that you provided to us. Now we're welcoming you to make a presentation to council. You have 10 minutes for your presentation, and when you're finished, then we'll have a discussion. Councilors might ask you some questions, and there may be some other comments, if that's all right. So if you have an oral presentation ready to go to add to your written presentation, please go right ahead.
All right, Alan, thank you very much, and greetings to all of you, councilors. I'd just like to clear up one little item of housekeeping before we carry on. There are a couple of political references in the documents we supplied you with. I want to make it perfectly clear that these references do not apply to Carmen Kerr. We enjoy a very good working relationship with Carmen, and we expect that to continue. So we'll carry on from there.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and play for you the presentation that we have put together, and questions can follow that. Just one moment.
Good morning, councilors, and the best of 2022 to you all. I'm Kip McCurdy, spokesperson for the Annapolis Waterkeepers. Our group has documented many violations of Environment Department, municipal, and provincial regulations at Arlington Heights, which we detail in your information packages. In this presentation, we will address only one issue, the long-term defiant and illegal dumping of auto fluff at Arlington. Fluff is the unusable residue from recycling cars. It contains residual automotive fluids, including antifreeze, engine oil, transmission oil and fluid, brake fluid, greases, and lubricants. It also contains heavy metals like mercury, lead, cadmium, and zinc, and poisons like arsenic and ethylene glycol. Fluff contains PCBs and a host of other noxious compounds. It's both toxic and carcinogenic. In Nova Scotia, fluff may not be legally dumped in Class 1 landfills like Arlington. John Ross and Jennifer Poole conspired to dump fluff at Arlington from 2015 to 2021, despite being denied approval by NSECC. And they continued to dump even after Minister Wilson in 2018 told them to stop. Dumping may have finally ended in December of 2020 when the department found Arlington Heights guilty of illegal disposal and issued a compliance action. The action was just a warning, and it was a joke because it addressed only a single incident in 2020. There was no investigation of the previous 5 years of prohibited disposal. Over the years, Ross and Poole piled up over 2.5 million square meters of fluff into a giant, dirty, poisonous glacier on top of the North Mountain. The cap is an ugly landmark visible for kilometers, and water tests now reveal that contaminated leachate oozing from the dump has escaped containment and worked its way down the mountainside towards our wells and springs. The tests report concentrations of many pollutants well above Canadian drinking water guidelines. All our complaints have fallen on deaf ears. 5 ministers of environment have ignored us. Our own MLA has brushed us off. We are disenfranchised by the very institutions that we charge with protecting human and environmental health. Our communities have become sacrifice zones. The truth is that faraway bureaucrats know little and care less about what goes on at Arlington. The result of that indifference is that Annapolis County now hosts a disposal opportunity for business that has become the dump of choice for HRM shippers with illicit loads, because there is amenable management at the dump and there is zero oversight. This dump gives the county a huge black eye. We have lost our health board and our school board to provincial control. Highways is now directed by bureaucrats in Sydney. This council body is our sole remaining defender of local interests. We thank you for your help in the past and offer some ideas for addressing the Arlington problem going forward. Here's our ask. We ask you to pass a bylaw that would require council's approval for disposal of solid waste in Annapolis County. Your right to enact such a law is confirmed by the Nova Scotia Court of Appeal. The court has ruled that the Municipal Government Act, quote, empowers municipalities to make bylaws regulating and prohibiting the disposal, collection, and removal of solid waste and matters incidental or conducive to the exercise of that power. It is our hope that legislated municipal oversight would save future Annapolis residents from suffering an unwanted rogue development like Arlington Heights. Secondly, we ask you to consider zoning restrictions as a means of arresting growth of this lawless facility. To date, Arlington Heights has expanded massively 3 times. The permit holder owns additional property adjacent to the dump, which may cite further growth. And finally, we ask you to enter negotiations with the province to obtain agreement on posting a municipal appointee as overseer at the dump, to verify material compliance and record the shipper and origin of waste materials. The Environment Act empowers the minister to negotiate an appropriate division of powers where municipal and provincial interests overlap. To date, it is abundantly clear that NSECC has been unable or unwilling to enforce compliance at Arlington. A full-time scrutineer that reported directly to council would solve the problem of non-compliant dumping. Of course, Arlington Heights would pay all associated costs. Thank you for your time this morning. We invite your questions, and we place ourselves, our group, and our communities at your service in the pursuit of environmental justice. Sincerely, Kip McCurdy for the Annapolis Waterkeepers.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCurdy. Appreciate that. Are there any questions or comments from council members? Councillor Connell.
I thank Mr. McCurdy for his report. I do see some deficiencies in it. One thing in the report, as I read it, and then he alluded to it in his statements, Department of Transportation decisions are not made in Sydney. That's false. That's a false statement. In Sydney, there's a provincial call center that takes requests from the public on their concerns, and they send that out to the districts which that concern is part of. Sydney does not make any decisions whatsoever on how Department of Transportation runs. All it is a call center that takes the information and passes it on. So that clarification is how the call center works. In his report, he said that he clarifies that there's been illegal dumping. And yet, I guess he did state one offense that was, they were charged under illegal dumping. I don't think Jennifer Poole owns that facility anymore. So a lot of things that are referred to are in the past. The suggestion that the obtain of permits to go on other pieces of property, to date, I don't think there's any request through environment for that. So again, it's speculation. Again, they were asked to stop bringing auto fluff there several years ago. And again, it's alluded to in the report that he still thinks it's coming today, but no proof. So I appreciate the concerns, but I think that we've got a job ahead of us to look at all aspects and to talk to all components. So thank him for his report.
Thank you for your.
Mr. McCurdy, you have to wait until you're recognized by me to speak. So please go ahead.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor. I stand corrected over the Sydney transportation situation. You obviously know more about that than appears in the newspaper accounts. I will point out that the management at Arlington Heights has not changed, even though the ownership may have changed. And we are asking for an overseer simply because we cannot verify what's going into the dump anymore. We used to have eyes on the dump, but we don't anymore. So.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from councillors? Councillor Redden?
Yeah, morning, Kip and Beth. Quite happy with your report. I would have liked to have seen some more detailed numbers that you have from your FOIPOP stuff. You've pointed out some things on, it shows up as page 8 of 79 in the council package, and on 9 of 79 in the council package. On 8 of 79, you talk about the groundwater tests, and I'd like to have seen those in the report. And on 9 of 79, you talk about the leachate tests being of the auto fluff going in being 75 times that is what is allowable. So I'd like to see those numbers, or even or hear them now if you have them at your fingertips. And then my question about an overseer, is that above and beyond their community consultation committee they're required to have, or is that, are you happy with a county representative on that committee?
Mr. McCurdy, I can respond a little bit about the committee if you want, because I myself have been in touch with Ken McLean, who's the lawyer for Dexter, it's actually Arlington Heights C&D Limited, which is a company owned by the municipal group of companies, of which Dexter is a different company. And Mr. McLean and I have had a number of back and forth about the Community Liaison Committee. My latest, the proponent has, being Arlington Heights C&D Limited, has created a committee, and they've appointed the people themselves to the committee. And I've written to Mr. McLean and suggested that the community be allowed to put 2 people on that committee. And the guidelines from environment also suggest there be a municipal councillor. And I suggested that I would recommend a councillor, and I haven't heard back from Mr. McLean on those requests is currently where that stands. Not to detract from your question, Councillor Redden, but I thought I would bring everybody up to date on that particular issue. I don't know if Mr. McCurdy, would you like to respond to some other comments made by Councillor Redden?
Yes, Councillor Redden, we will be happy to supply you with the actual documentation of the test result. We'll put that in a package and send it to all of you.
Other comments from any councillors? Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. I want to thank the folks who are with us today and who have been involved in this matter for quite some time. I and my colleagues on council have read the material that you sent to us. And I, for my part, and I would imagine it's also the view of my colleagues, that we have given it the consideration it deserves. And I would hope you would agree with me that we ought to let the other parties, notably the province, also give us that view before we would consider adopting any of the recommendations you have made to us. I was quite taken, and not in a positive way, with some remarks on the first page of your submission, which consisted of a number of accusations of unscrupulousness, lassitude, cronyism, and patronage. And I may have overlooked them, but I haven't seen anything in your comments that would fit under those words. You also talk about dereliction of duty. I spent one of my careers in an environment where dereliction of duty was one of the most serious and highest charges you could make against someone. And I'm not sure if you have the evidence to support a charge of dereliction of duty or not. Thank you.
Any other councillors? Councillor Longmire?
Thank you. I'm curious about the access to the actual dump. Are there logs kept? Is it gated and locked, or is it 24-hour accessible? Is there any way of knowing whether trucks coming from outside the county, so like from Halifax, which I know in past has been, ongoing? Just wondering, do we keep a log as to where all of this debris is coming from for accountability's sake?
Mr. McCurdy, do you know the answer to that?
There is no record kept of the material or the origin or the shipper.
Thank you. I do feel that oversight, is desperately needed. This has been an ongoing concern in the county, so it would be so good to kind of get a better handle on this. Thank you, and thank you for the report.
I'll make a few comments and I'll invite others afterwards. The bylaw issue arises out of the case of the municipality of the County of Colchester versus Colchester Containers Limited, which I've read a number of times. And just to help out maybe the other councillors on this, I'm going to try to make a short resume of that decision. Colchester County operated one waste site that dealt with asbestos. There was an application they anticipated coming from a company for a second site. So Colchester passed a bylaw saying that they would only allow one site for asbestos in their county. And that would be the one that was already there and the one that they operated. The company that was intending to open a second site then took judicial review of that decision of denying them the permit to the Supreme Court Trial Division, and the company was successful. And the court overturned the bylaw, saying that it was really planning and not waste management, which waste management is a power given to a municipality. And the court said that since it was planning, it didn't go through the proper planning procedures of public meetings, and therefore the bylaw was null and void. That decision was appealed to the Nova Scotia Court of Appeal, which overturned that decision and said that the decision of the municipal council to pass a bylaw saying there would only be the one the one asbestos site in the county was allowed under their power to deal with waste in the county. So the end result was, yes, there's only one site, the one asbestos site in the county, and the applicant for the second site was denied his chance. The ask that the water keepers are making of us today is to use that power that the court outlined in that case to create our own bylaw, which would, and I'm reading from the request, a bylaw that would impose conditions for disposal of solid waste in Annapolis County. Now, that's, every case is different on the facts. The Colchester case dealt with an applicant who was not yet there. The request we have from the water keepers deals with asbestos site and a C&D site that is there and is regulated by the Department of Environment. There are provisions in the case that say that the municipality can't pass a bylaw that is in conflict with provincial legislation. And we all know that the province regulates these sites, and there is an approval from the province with respect to this particular site. Having said that, what the water keepers have raised is, to me, what I call a law school problem. That is the application of the principles set out in the Colchester case to the facts that we have here. My initial impression, which could be wrong, is that the provincial, having already approved this site, that we couldn't start to regulate it with our own bylaw. That's my sense, but I could be wrong. And in earlier communications that we've had with the water keepers, they suggested that they might get a legal opinion from an environmental law group. And I would very much like to see that. And Mr. McCurdy, can I ask you if it's possible that you could provide the county with a legal opinion from a reputable law firm that would suggest that we would have the power to pass the type of bylaw that your group is requesting?
We ran that by Ecke Law, and they thought,
East Coast Environmental Law.
and they said that if council was looking into it, that they would not address the issue at the moment because it would be a duplication of effort. So if you would allow me to tell Ecke Law that you are not going to examine the bylaw, then I think they would circle back and give us an opinion. I can do that if that's what you would like.
I would very much like you to do that. I can't speak for council. I'm the warden, but council speaks for council. Right now, council has not requested a legal opinion on this. There's not a motion before council to request a legal opinion. So I think it's safe to say, if you reported to Ecolaw, that right now the county has nothing in motion to obtain a legal opinion, and we would very much like to have one from them. I would think that would be a good thing to do. Is that?
Will do.
Okay. The municipal overseer of dumping, were you able to, has that ever happened before? Is this something you thought up yourselves, the group, or are you aware of that having been done in some other jurisdiction?
Sorry, I missed your question.
Would I repeat the question? The municipal overseer that you've proposed?
Yes.
Is that something that your group has created and thought up themselves, or are you aware of that having been done in any other jurisdiction?
I am not aware that it has been done anywhere else, no. And it would be a matter of negotiation with the province.
The other thing I'd like to say is that, as Councillor Connell has said a few times in public forum, that he'd like to hear the other side. I too would like to have the Department of Environment respond to these points, I'll call them. And I'm just wondering, mechanically, perhaps we could put an issue at the next committee of the whole meeting in February to review this and have council determine if they want to have a response from the Department of Environment on the points that you've raised. Would any councillor like to pick up on that? Councillor Connell?
Yes, I was going to put notice of motion at the end of this that we contact Department of Environment to give us an overview of the permit and the permitting process, and what regulations we can apply, or anything that we can work with them with. Or it would be nice to hear their side of the permitting and the accusations about illegal dumping. I mean, there's quite a few acquisitions in here that there's things going wrong there, and I would like to have the ones that's monitoring it give us their overview. And as far as I'm concerned, if we're going to pick on one C&D site in our county, because we have two that take asbestos, then they should be allowed to come to the table and give us their overview. So there's more work that the county should be doing, but I definitely am going to put forward a notice of motion coming for February to be in contact with Department of Agriculture or Department of Environment on this issue.
Did you get that, Madam Clerk? Notice of motion? Roughly? Okay, we'll bring this up, a notice of motion that we'll put this on the agenda for February to essentially get a response from Department of Environment to the issues raised in this report from the waterkeepers. Okay. Any other comments from councillors? Councillor Cotw?
Yes, thank you. I want to thank the Annapolis waterkeepers for the presentation. You've certainly raised the specter of a serious existing problem in the county, and I believe that council may indeed have a role in seeking out a fair and just solution. I think we need to take a look at what you presented us with, and indeed what perhaps the Department of Environment will have to say, and others, and hopefully come up with some sort of solution or a relief of the problem that will be acceptable to all parties. I read and reread and reread your presentation that came to us in writing. And there are things there that concern, I'm sure, all of us. And thank you for your presentation.
Councillor Longmire?
Thank you. This is, I believe, through you, Parish, sorry, Warden. I'm just wondering, will the information that's being acquired that Councillor Connell had just added to this conversation, will we be getting inspection reports or annual reports, or have they been acquired through the FOIPOP process?
If I could just speak to my understanding of the notice of motion that Councillor Connell gave, is that essentially we'll be sending the waterkeeper's presentation to the Department of Environment, if approved by council at the next meeting, for a response. And then when the response comes back from Environment, we'll go from there, is essentially where I think we are. Is that right, Councillor Connell? Yes, he's agreeing, yeah. Does that answer your question, Councillor Longmire?
Sure, thank you.
Other councillors? Deputy Warden?
Thank you. I want to thank you, Mr. McCurdy, and your group for the diligence in pursuing this tragic series of events. The municipal group, you know, is a very large company. Dexter's part of them, and they have a lot of push with provincial governments here in the Maritimes. I share your concern with this C&D site. This aquifer that this affects stretches right down the North Mountain. I own property that's, you know, this aquifer feeds. I'm now going to go get my water tested with the good, just to see what's showing up in it now. And this property, this North Mountain aquifer, also feeds and supplies the water to our Granville Ferry water source. I'd like to have Department of Environment come and explain their actions of the last few years, not just with the Arlington site, but how Annapolis County has been treated by Department of Environment in the last couple of years. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Connell, for perhaps the last comment from you, Councillor Connell.
Yeah, because I know we'll have many more discussions on this, but you got to realize that not every truck that goes in that site comes from out of our county. Many, many, many trucks from our own county take stuff there. When the C&D waste at the Valley Waste site in Lawrencetown was just shortly taken care of, ground up, separated, and diverted as much as possible, the gyp was sold to farmers for on their properties. When they get into creosoted stuff, when they get the waste that's left over from the gyp, all that stuff goes to a C&D site. So it's our own local stuff that's going to C&D sites in our own county too. So I don't want our other councillors to think that we're only receiving 100% that goes to that site from outside our county. A lot of it is from our own waste. So think about where your waste is going. I'm sure that out on the South Shore where we send our garbage, is there 100% people out there that think they should take Annapolis County's garbage and bury it in their communities? We have a lot to think about waste. And unless we want to take care of 100% of our own waste in our own county, we have some decisions to make. And like I said before, we have 2 C&D sites in our county. And picking on one version of the C&D sites versus dealing with waste is in my mind, I will not support picking on one individual business versus dealing with the overall subject of garbage. Thank you.
Okay, I think unless there's something else, that'll be the end of the questions. And let me just sum up to you, Mr. McCurdy and Ms. Cranston and the others I see on the screen here. Mr. Reed, it's good to see you in person. I'll sum up by saying that there's a notice of this will come back on our council committee of the whole meeting in February. There's been notice of motion that council will consider whether to send your report to the Department of Environment and ask for a response. And secondly, if you can get us a legal opinion on the ability that we might have to further regulate the site by way of bylaw, we'd be pleased to receive that. So thank you very much for your presentation, and we look forward to you watching us next February to see how the notice of motion goes. Thank you very much.
Well,
Thank you.
Okay,
okay, yes, we're done.
so we're back.
Pardon me, sorry. I think Kip wanted to say something, if that's okay.
All I was going to suggest was that this is just the beginning of a dialogue, and the more we talk about it, the closer we will get to an equitable solution for everyone. So thank you for your time this morning, councilors.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, I don't know. I think the water keepers people, they're welcome to stay as public, are they, Madam Clerk, if they want?
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. So let me just get my papers in order here because I kind of had them spread out a little differently for this. So bear with me for a moment, if you would.
And you do have one more committee report.
Right, right. So I'm just trying to get my papers in order here. So we've got the Economic Development Committee report, and that is on page 79. All right, I have that. And I guess Deputy Warden, if you would like to move to receive that report as circulated. You're muted, Deputy Warden. There you go.
That Committee of the Whole received the Economic Development Committee report as circulated.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Sheridan seconds. So you have the report in front of you on page 79. Any questions or comments? Councillor LeBlanc?
I was just wondering, what information did we collect when meeting with the Valley Wren? Can we have some information on that?
Councillor Redden, can you respond to that? He's the Councillor Redden's the chair of the committee.
Yeah, I was going to defer that to you, Warden. It was your meeting, but I'm happy to talk. Grossly, I would say what we took away from meeting those two organizations was their funding sources, and that the Valley Wren seems to be mostly provincial funds, and the Annapolis Ventures is mostly federal funds. The nitty-gritty's not necessarily really important, but they're doing very similar work in the county and in the area, helping businesses develop business plans, acquire grants and funding, and any business management related activities, really, for small businesses right up onto larger stuff. I believe the Valley Wren said they'd done some work with Michelin as far as the top end of the scale goes. So it was a lot of education for us as members about what is going on and the tools that are available to business owners in the county. It's very interesting.
If I could respond further, Councillor LeBlanc, I took, as is my habit, quite a lot of notes at the meeting with the Valley Wren. Unfortunately, I'm looking at my table here with a bunch of files, and that's not one of the ones I have with me. But I do recall that, they basically, I don't think I need to explain what the Wrens do I? I mean, I think we all understand what they do. I do recall that they said that they're focusing on three main factors or types of business: manufacturing, agriculture, and tourism were the three they were focusing on. They have made an approach to the county, a formal approach for the county to join the Valley Wren. And Mr. Dick, you can help me out here if my recollection fails me. But my understanding is that if we did join the Valley Wren, there would be a fee to the county of, I think, about $70,000 a year. I see Mr. Dick nodding. I think that Mr. Dick has written to them and along the lines of we're reviewing our economic development situation through the Economic Development Committee, and we'll get back to them in maybe 6 months to respond as to whether we want to join Valley Wren or not. And Mr. Dick, can you help me out on that?
What I would prefer to do is to have the Economic Development Committee make a recommendation through the budget process. We don't have any funding available in the current circumstances to provide any funding for Valley Wren, so that's a decision we would make in March/April/May when we approve the next year's budget.
So if I could just add to that, then what I anticipate is that the Economic Development Committee could suggest that we join Valley Wren, I guess, for a certain cost, or they could suggest we take that money and target something specific for our county with that money, or they could come up with something else. So I guess that's kind of where we are at the moment. I hope, Councillor LeBlanc, you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I want to say thank you for explaining to that. But my next question would be, are we also going to investigate we're in the middle. So there's Valley Wren, and then there's also the Digby Yarmouth Wren. So is there going to be a plan to visit or invite or talk with the other Wren before decisions are made?
Not that I know of as warden. I see Councillor Redden there, who's the chair of the committee, and I'll speak. I don't know. I'm a member of the committee, so I don't know of any suggestion that we have made those arrangements. Yeah, Councillor Redden.
I do have some vague, and I want to emphasize the vagueness of this recollection here is I think the zones of the Wren were laid out provincially, but I might be wrong on that. That's something I read several months ago, if I in fact read it at all. So I don't even know if that's an option for us. In large part, the committee, any economic development plan is going to sort of come out of our strategic plan for the county as well. So although the Economic Development Committee is interested in moving individual initiatives forward, we're a bit tied up as far as developing a really comprehensive plan goes until we have a strategic plan in place. And I know some of you have heard me mention plans before, but this is just another instance of us bumping into it. And the committee did want to extend an invitation to any of you if you have economic development initiatives you would like to bring forward about specific things. We're more than happy to entertain those and give our opinion.
And I'll comment if
Go
I
ahead,
may.
Councillor LeBlanc, sure.
Councillor Redden is absolutely right. The province had divided different regions for REN. But my understanding was they had also the previous councils had also spoke about possibly going with the other REN, and they hadn't said no. So that's why I was bringing it up.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Any other comments about, Councillor Cotw?
Yeah, when the Wren started, I think we had the opportunity to go either, because we were in the middle. I would personally like to see a workshop or a special committee of the whole held with all of us councilors, and maybe run by the Economic Development Committee, because we all have different aspects of our districts we represent that deals with economic development. I have a few farms, but not a lot of farming. Lynn has fishing, artisans, stuff like that. So there's a broad spectrum on how we can help economic being driven in our county. But I think that it should be at least set down as a council, as a group, and give our suggestions. And then the committee would have knowing what there's to offer in our different areas. And I honestly think economic development and the strategic plan is a process that all of council should be a part of. So, and one time I will say that I heard Brad when he said our strategic plan should be for 20 years. You're way off course. You don't even know, I don't even know if I'm going to be here in 3 years. Why would we waste our energy and time trying to plan a 20-year plan, which none of us may not even be on council, which we know the minute a new council comes in, it could be thrown in a shredder because they have their own ideas. It'll be a new generation. I think that we only have 3 years left of this council. We've spent the first year fighting hotspots. We need to move on and try to get something done as a representatives of our areas in the next 3 years. The most we should be looking at is 8-year plan. Because I've been on council. I've been on council when we did recreation reviews. And guess what? They're probably so covered in dust because they've never been used since after 3 years they've been done. They're outdated. So I think that personally, I think that we should be concentrating on the maximum of an 8-year plan. Hopefully there'll be enough to survive the next election to keep that plan moving forward. And at that time, that council can push to have it for another few years and add things to it. It's going to be a moving project, but I definitely think that we should try to set up a day of broad thinking by every one of us councilors that what could my area contribute to Annapolis County as an economic driver. And I hope that happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Warden.
Thank you very much. You know, my area, I have everything going on. People in my district, they do what they need to do to get by. And that's the way it is. We don't have farming, fishing as such. People have to work, leave, and do what they do. That's besides the point. We have a strategic plan, the county. I remember when I first came on council, however much, 5 years ago, the former warden got up and says, well, I think my qualifications is that I helped develop the strategic plan. And we've never looked at the strategic plan. I haven't looked at it other than I looked at it online one day, but council itself has never sat down and gone over the strategic plan. Now, there's the thing is with strategic plans, they should be revisited every year because council changes. People leave council, they come into council, new ones are elected, some don't show up. Anyway, strategic plans are supposed to be looked at every year by council and re-enter and redefined. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Councillor Longmire, you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. With the strategic plan, I totally agree. We need something. As far as the long term, that's not even realistic. We're facing the next 3 years, and although much of our work has been consumed with other areas, we do need to show some accountability to a projection of a plan. So although I wouldn't agree a 20-year plan is needed and an 8-year plan is probably too far out, we should probably at least get busy, look at what the old strategic plan looked like. It would be a great template to start from, and just put something in order. It doesn't make us look organized if we don't have an idea of where we plan to head to. So I guess I would just say that, and that special meeting that Councillor Connell spoke about, I think that would be very valuable, because each of us do have districts that will have, serious influences on what that plan could or will look like. Thank you.
Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. This is a very interesting and beneficial conversation we're having now. And I've made known to a number of people my view of the subjects we should be considering in the next year or two along the lines set out by my colleague, Councillor Connell. We do have at this very moment what was described as a strategic plan. We need to look at it and decide if it is still relevant, and if so, what are we going to do about it? And if it is not relevant, or it's not the type of strategic plan that we would like to have, that we set out to get what it is we desire. We also need to know whose responsibility it is to draft a strategic plan. I was chair of the Strategic Planning Committee, and it was made known to me quite plainly by the Chief Administrative Officer at the time that it was the responsibility of the Chief Administrative Officer to draft the strategic plan and put it to council. And if we have further discussions on the strategic plan at some sort of a special meeting, that's one of the subjects we ought to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dick, did you have your hand up to say something?
I did, Mr. Warden, and thank you. This might bring all of this together. And I've discussed this with maybe a few councillors. Certainly in terms of a strategic plan, it's something that we need to move forward on. I've already engaged the province to come down and give us a mini discussion that'll probably run 4 to 5 hours. And that's subject to us physically being in a room together. Coincidentally, he and I spoke this morning about maybe doing it sometime mid-February, hoping some of the restrictions will be loosened. So that was my original step in terms of getting council to agree that a strategic focus is something that we need to talk about. And admittedly, there is a plan in place now. And as I understand, it's 3 pages with 61 items. Quite frankly, we're never going to deal with 61 items. That's way too many to deal with in a short period of time. But what I would like to do, subject to that meeting that we have with the province, hopefully in sometime in February, is I'd like to put in our budget for 2023 is to have a consultant come in and consult not only with us or you as elected officials, but the community, have community meetings and get the community involved in a strategic focus going forward. I think the other important thing is, and it's been said by 3 or 4 of you, is that this is a living document. And the reality is once we've come up with our strategic focus, and typically those are 4 or 5 main items, economic development being one of the important ones, but certainly environmental concerns being one. And when we talk about the longevity of these, some of the climate control, environmental issues need to live beyond 3 or 4 years. Those are longer term initiatives. But what my plan would be is assign somebody in-house to be in charge of the strategic plan. And every report that we provide to council has to have a focus on the strategic plan. There would be reference to it. And we would bring that back to council on a periodic basis, which could be as often as every quarter, and talk about where we are with our plan. So that's the focus that I have at this point. Subject to when Jason Hahn and his team can come down and present to council. My plan would be to do it in 2 stages, maybe 4 to 6, whatever evening that could be. The first phase of it, then we could have dinner, and then we would do the second phase of it from 7 to 9 or something like that. But again, that's subject to council's availability. And then from there, that we would decide to engage the services of a third-party specialist to guide us and the community through that process.
Thank you for that. I'll just say a few words about my view of this. I have looked at our strategic plan. Excuse me. It's, as Mr. Dick said, it's 3 pages long, and it has 61 proposals, some of which have been done out of necessity, but none of which I don't think have ever been done just because they were listed on that 3-page document. Myself, I've seen many strategic plans and similar types of plans sitting, gathering dust on bookshelves on and on. And I'd rather take what money we might allocate in our budgeting system next year and pick maybe one thing and get it done in the 3 years we've got left. And, you know, the other thing we have to think about as a rural community, a rural county, when I mentioned the 3 things that the Valley Wren were interested in, manufacturing, well, manufacturing would probably go to, say, the business park in Middleton. It may be in the county, it may not. Tourism tends to result more in advantages to the town of Annapolis Royal, which has the inns and the restaurants. Myself, I'm attracted to the idea of doing, if we can do something for agriculture, and I don't know if we can, because that's something that the county's always going to have, and is something to base economic development on into the future. So that's, for what it's worth, those are my views as to what we might do, but I think we all agree that we should have some kind of a process going forward with respect to a strategic or economic plan. I hear a noise in the background there. Is it just me, or can everybody hear it? Yeah. I don't know where it's coming from. Everybody can kind of check. It looks like it's a printer or something, is what it sounds like. Oh, okay, stopped. Councillor Redden. Oh, there it goes again.
Yeah, no, just to kind of, I guess, around it to sum up. I mean, when I think about these plans, there's your action items in the short term, you know, our 3-year goals. And when I say we should have longer term goals, it's not that, you know, we're of course not binding council in the long term. It's about your long term goals inform your short term goals, and which then in turn inform your actionable items in the immediate sense. So I don't I don't think that we should say, you know, in 20 years we're going to do this. I think it's, you know, this is if we want to focus on agriculture in this county, or we want to focus on tourism in this county, you lay out an objective for 20 years, and if you get there, that's great, and if you don't, that's also great. I mean, as Councillor Cotw indicated, most of us probably won't be on council in 20 years, if any of us, and it's just about having some long-term sight in your objective. Our current strategic plan has a number of objectives, but it's only, well, I guess it's 6 years old, and although there's items on there that still need to be done, there's nothing in that plan that sort of informs our decisions today about whether we want to move forward and what we want to do about recreation or projects we want to follow, or the vision for the county. And that's really where I feel the longer term objectives come in. It's about relating to the population and your staff, where you want to be moving in the long term. I mean, I'm certainly a little biased in this long-term planning coming from the mineral resource industry, where, you know, from when you start looking for a mine to when you actually open that mine, it might be 50 years. That project will get picked up and put down a number of times. And it'll change businesses and all kinds of stuff. But you always have these plans in place. And, you know, if we said we wanted to, you know, focus on automobile manufacturing, that might not be a great long-term plan for this county. You know, automobiles might not be around in 50 years, or they'll look very, very differently. So, you know, if an opportunity came up in a year for us to invest in something like that, it might look for like a great opportunity in the short term. But is it the place we want to be in 20 years? And are we moving that sort of long-term objective forward? That's where I see the long-term vision coming in. Isn't so much isn't necessarily just about what we are doing today. It's about how do we plan on addressing our the opportunities that come before us that we haven't necessarily planned for. Kind of like our policy in some senses. We develop policy because it's we consider it in the moment to remove emotional bias from the decisions when they come before us necessarily. You know, we may, yes, I'll stop now.
Thank you. So I don't want to just leave. It's been a good discussion. I can see there's interest around the council table on this issue. I don't want to just leave it there. Councillor Connell has suggested we have a committee of the whole to discuss this. Mr. Dick has indicated that he anticipates somebody coming from the province to talk about it. Mr. Dick, they were going to talk to us about economic development plans or strategic plans. Tell me again.
The discussion is going to focus on strategic plans. Yes.
Well, it seems logical to me that be the first step. And we don't want to let this just ride off into nowhere. So is there a sense around the table that the next step will be to hear from the province on the strategic plan and then move forward with our own input into creating something? Does that sound like a good way to move forward? I'm seeing some nodding. So, Mr. Dick, if I could encourage you to cement that arrangement,
I'll do it.
your earliest opportunity, that would be great. Before we leave that subject, I think Councillor Connell, you want to say something?
Yes, Don may remember more than myself because my memory with names is short, but Gord McIntosh, I believe he was the gentleman that we had for years, used to come down and go over and help us make a strategic plan or help us develop it. Was that his name, Don? Do you remember?
That was his name. I would suggest that you look for someone in Nova Scotia.
I realized that he wasn't from Nova Scotia, but he did an excellent job. And I hear Brad's concerns, but he also should realize is that in the 16 to 18 years I was there before, we made strategic plans and economic development plans every couple years. It's nothing new. It's if he went back on the old minutes and the old councils, probably every council had an economic development program in place and a strategic plan working forward. It's nothing new, and it will be nothing new in the years to come. So it's but I know that I just saw on our emails that Gord McIntosh was doing a training session there, and he was excellent in leading the council at that time forward with making a plan and how to deal with exactly what the warden was saying. And so and Councillor Morrison, is that when you make a strategic plan and you've got 60 some items on it, you can't accomplish anything because it's too broad. And that's what Gordon McIntosh put across to us is that when you make a box and you put 10 items in it, in a year's time, if a priority comes up for council, then council has to take that box back out and say, okay, this new item is very important to us, but what out of that 10 is coming out of the box? You can't keep filling the box. You got to pick your items that are majority that council wants to move forward on. Like the warden says, we got 3 years left. It would be nice to have 3 or 4, maybe half a dozen, but at the most. And that's how it should work, is that if something else pops up that is very important, then we have to go back in and make a decision what in that box can come out. So I'm looking forward to what the province presents to us, and definitely looking forward to getting on the go. So.
Thank you. Last comment on this, Deputy Warden, I see your hand up. Did you want to make one last comment?
I did. It was more of a question through you, Warden, to somebody in staff that might be able to answer, possibly a counselor. How many of these items on our strategic plans that we've had through the last few years have actually been executed? You know, come through, have been done?
I've looked at it myself, and some were, as I said, some were done, but I don't think it's necessarily because they were on the plan. It's because they were things coming up in the normal sequence of events. Yeah, you can look at it. It's.
Oh, I've look. Thank you.
I think we have a motion on the table, and I see Councillor Longmire wants to make one last quick comment. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, you know, we're in this place of getting started to restart our province. And, you know, we've got a lot of newcomers in our areas, in our communities, in our districts. And this is a perfect time, I think, to look at what a strategic plan could be for us. And as you said, Warden Parrish, you know, if we could put a few items on the plate and achieve them, it is about the action, as Deputy Warden Gunn said. We do need to make sure that we can commit and follow through, and then adjust ourselves if other important things arise. But I think it is an opportunity to hear from the province, and as well hear from the youth and the newcomers and some fresh ideas. Thank you.
So the motion on the table is to receive the report from the Economic Development Committee as circulated. Unless there are other comments, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. The next is the notice of motions, and those are mine, and they relate to Bridgetown matters. Excuse me. Let me introduce these notice of motions, and they look quite long. When I submitted them to the clerk, they were numbered, and so they didn't look quite so long. But what we do with these two buildings in Bridgetown, to me, are decisions that are going to impact that community for generations, 50 years. And I think, you know, we need to get it right for the benefit of the community. And what I'm looking for, particularly, I'll talk about the first one, about the elementary school. The motion I intend to bring in February is to get what I think is the information that we need to make the right decision. So if you go through it, I would like to have a current estimate of the cost of demolishing the school. I think we need that information. Secondly, we need to know the condition of the school. Whether it has asbestos, mold, heating, mechanicals, or other issues. Now, those of you that were at the Bridgetown Town Hall meeting, you'll recall that there was a comment, at least from one person, that was the condition of the building. I know you can hire these building inspectors, people that look at a house before you buy it. They're not very expensive. I think we could have somebody hired for a couple $100, maybe $500, to go through the building and tell us what condition it's in. And that I'd like to know that for a couple of reasons. One is that if it's really in terrible shape and we sell it to somebody, then the odds are they're not going to demolish it if it's really expensive, and they're not going to fix it up if it's really expensive. It's going to stay there like that and have graffiti and be a mess. Next, I'd like to have a current estimate of the value of the lots that are on that property. I know that we've had discussion on this before. Councillor Bartow suggested maybe 40,000, maybe 30. I'd like to have a number. I think we need to have that number. And I'd like to know that if we did if we did have building lots there, is there a cost to the county for servicing those lots? Now, it seems to me that financially, the best thing, if we're just looking at dollars and cents for the county, is to take whatever offer we get, sell it, and walk away. And myself, I think we would be doing a disservice to the community if we did that. I think we have to look at this as more than dollars and cents, although dollars and cents are important. And so this notice of motion that I'm giving is so that we get the information before us before we make the decision. With respect to the town hall, I'd like to begin, my notice of motion is that we register it as a municipal heritage property. We request staff to provide a report to council outlining the pros and cons of selling the town hall separate from the parking lot. As you know from the meeting, the town hall meeting, there's concern about the parking lot, whether it should be a community parking lot for parking for the commercial district, or whether it should go with the building if we sell the building, such that they might use it for their own parking. And then we do have our POP site just behind the town hall. And I would like to just know what the situation is if we sell the building with respect to access to that site. So that's the information. All I'm asking for next month in my notices of motion is information so that we can make the right decisions with respect to these buildings. So that's it. That's my summary as to why I'm bringing those notices of motion next month. Deputy Warden, you want to say something?
Just real quick, a real quick question, sorry. And I'm sure Mr. Dick can answer it. Can we have
point of order, please?
Okay, Councillor Morrison.
I want to get straight in my mind the procedure. The item is entitled Notice of Motions, and then for the February meeting of Committee of the Whole.
Right.
So our discussions now ought not to be on anything to do with the substance of the motions, but whether we wish to have them on the agenda for the Committee of the Whole. Am I correct?
You're correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Deputy Warden.
Thank you. Can we hire our own building inspector to look at the school?
I think you're talking about the substance of my motion, and
I can't see that being the substance. It'd be a simple question.
well, that's what I think that's for next month when I bring my motion is I think the answer to your question.
But excuse me, Warden, but that work will have been done by then. We will, because you're asking in your motion that we hire somebody from outside to look at the building.
Well, that motion's not on the table today.
No, but just the what you have in front of me here, whatever you called it, it says that we hire somebody to look at that school. That would be done by next month. My question is excuse me, I see shaking heads, but that doesn't matter. My question is,
it matters if I raise a point of order.
Can we hire our own
Councillor Morrison,
building inspector?
Okay. Deputy Warden, those are questions that should be raised next month when my motion is brought before council. That's my ruling. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Next, any other? Not that really there's much to discuss. I'm just giving notice of motion, and if you all want to disagree with me next month, you're welcome to disagree with me. Okay. So that brings us to the in-camera part of the meeting. Am I correct in that? Is that where we are? And it's 12:15. So perhaps this is an opportune time to break and come back at 1 o'clock. Does that work for everybody? And those of you that are watching in the public, the rest of the meeting will be in camera. That's my understanding at the moment, unless something changes, which it's probably not likely. And so the only rest of the public meeting will be to adjourn the meeting. So that's where we are for the rest of the day. Thank you. So we'll take a break till 1 o'clock. Thank you. Okay, welcome everybody. This is the continuation of the Committee of the Whole meeting of the County of the Municipality of the County of Annapolis. And we're continuing on with our meeting. Deputy Warden, we're going to go in camera. Would you bring the motion forward, please?
That Committee of the Whole meet in camera in accordance with sections 22(2)(c) personnel matters, E, contract negotiations, and F, litigation and potential litigation of the Municipal Government Act.
There's a seconder to that motion? Councillor Prout seconds. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, we'll go in camera. Someone like to move that we adjourn the meeting? Moved by Councillor Bartow, seconded by Councillor Redden. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much.